I am practicing not being distressed, to live, to be alive in my body.
I am practicing hearing the old and new colliding at the border of my awareness.
I am practicing starting small while being big.
I am practicing what it is to be and do enough based on a measurement from within.
I am practicing loving my body, normalizing my body, relinquishing control, listening to my inner communications as if to a teacher, being authentic in my self-love.
I am so grateful to be alive.
I am considering that this state of mind and body might just be the healthiest I've ever been.
And, one of the things I know Reverend Nick spent the past couple weeks talking about art, talking about how representation matters, having movies and music and books. And when I found this book, which is called Bodies Are Cool by Tyler Fetter, my little kid heart and my young adolescent heart broke wide open because I went, wow, if this book had been around when I was your age or even some of your ages, what a difference it might have meant for me. So it's very cool. Big bodies, small bodies, dancing, playing, happy bodies. Look at all these different bodies. Bodies are cool. Do you guys think we could practice saying that? Bodies are cool.
Bodies are cool.
Okay, so that's going to be your important part through the rest of the story, okay? Lanky bodies, squat bodies, tall bodies, short bodies, wide bodies, narrow bodies, somewhere in the middle bodies. Those affirmations are important. Round bodies, muscled bodies, curvy curves and straight bodies, jiggly wiggly fat bodies. Very good. Make sure our friends over here again. Let's see. Dark skin, olive skin, every shade of brown skin, pinky pale or peach skin. You all are doing great. Poofy hair, wavy hair, springy curls and flat hair, lots of hair or no hair. Very good. Leg hair, armpit hair, fuzzy lip and chin hair, brows meet in the middle hair. Hazel eyes, brown eyes, monolids and round eyes, blind and wearing glasses eyes. Crooked faces, bump-nosed faces, flat nose, full lips, gap-toothed faces, stick-out ears, and thin-lip faces. All right, come back to our friends on this side. Freckled bodies, dotted bodies, rosy patched or speckled bodies, dark skin swirled with light-skinned bodies. Hairy fingers, wrinkly fingers, dimpled elbows, chubby fingers, wobbly arms and stubby fingers. Soft tummies, saggy tummies, flat or sticky outie tummies, innies, outies, pregnant tummies. Thick legs, scrawny legs, knobby knees and long legs, rolled up to the table legs. Faint scars, bold scars, stripes from getting bigger scars, marks that tell a story scars. this body, that body, his and her and their body, however you define your body. Very good. Growing bodies, aging bodies, features rearranging bodies, magic ever-changing bodies. Very good. Last one, ready? My body, your body, every different kind of body, all of them are good bodies. All right, one more really quick thing, because you know it's almost Valentine's Day. Why don't you go ahead and cross your arms over your chest, make a little heart and say, I love my body. We can be our worst critics or our best cheerleaders. So I encourage you to bring those affirmations with you into your daily life. Put it as a Post-it note on the mirror if you need to. Bodies are cool. And we are going to go make some nourishment for our bodies and work on our youth service. So let's go on out to the narthex.
My name is Sandra Bolte. I'm honored to be a member of the Sunday service team. I feel like I owe you all a disclaimer. The opinions I'm about to express strictly are my own and do not represent UUCCI or UUA. There's some new people here that may not realize that. All right. At 6, I was told my feet weren't right. I was made to wear corrective shoes, even though they seemed fine to me. By 7, there was something wrong with me because I didn't like dolls. By 8, I was way too skinny. By 9, I wanted to wear blue jeans, but was told I couldn't. By 11, I needed glasses to fix my eyes so I could see the board at school. By 13, my hair had darkened and was no longer towhead blonde, and it was entirely too straight. I needed this stinky, toxic process called a perm to give me curls. By 14, I knew I liked girls, and it was clearly not okay with anyone. By 16, it was strongly suggested I needed to lighten the color of my hair too. At 17, I was told no man would ever want me because I wasn't girly enough. At 23, complete strangers would come up to me and tell me I was too young to have a baby. At 31, when I got my MBA and was interviewing for jobs in corporate America, my friends told me I wouldn't be able to land a job if I didn't shave my legs. Seemed like everyone had an opinion about my body and my life, and there was no hesitation to express it. What did I know? I talked to my brothers about this, and they couldn't think of one thing like this in their lives. One brother responded, well, of course, you're a girl. He still sees nothing askew about this. In a patriarchy, women and their bodies belong to the men. There's been some recognition of the problem with this, and the attitudes have changed over the years. But some men, maybe many, still think the world was created for them. They found recognizing rights for people who are not white, straight, male, cisgendered was a mistake. It took something away from them, maybe a lot of privilege, which they deserved. A government who once thought their job was to protect the minorities no longer sees their role that way. Laws seem to be a good way to enforce how women and other minorities are to use their own bodies. Lord knows, a bunch of straight white male politicians would be best at choosing what is right for society. This reading is an excerpt from Instagram and Body Dysmorphia. How Heavily Edited Photos Cause Mental Illness and Ableness by Hannah Sawyer. What's often missing from discussions of body dysmorphia and beauty ideals is awareness of how ableism feeds these ideals and how these ideals feed ableism. If you have a visible disability that makes you appear markedly different from what westernized culture deems beautiful, the struggle to feel at home in your body may be even more difficult. This also disproportionately impacts people who are multiply marginalized. Beauty standards often uphold whiteness and features of white people as the ideal, and features of non-white people as undesirable. For transgender people, the desire to appear more feminine or more masculine and pressures to avoid harassment and violence contribute to rates of eating disorders that are as much as 5 times higher than that of their cisgender peers. Ultimately, when conversations around body image and body dysmorphia don't include the awareness of disability, a large and diverse segment of the population is left out. This plays out in advertising and marketing, but also from person to person. Along with body dysmorphia, Instagram also continually perpetuates fat phobia, the dislike or hatred of fat bodies. By spotlighting women with cosmetically and digitally altered thin Instagram bodies. These Instagram bodies are often women with exaggerated proportions, such as tiny waist, large hips, skinny legs, with pronounced gaps between thighs. The app has been criticized for censoring or shadow banning content from fat or plus size creators, especially those who are Black or other people of color, while allowing thin, white creators to share similar content with no repercussions.
Our second reading is an excerpt from another article, Institutional Misogyny is a Threat to Reproductive Justice Everywhere, by Evelyn Opondo and Caroline Harper. From the US to Kenya to the UK, most institutions have historically been designed by men and for men, which means they are not neutral places. Their processes, rules, and physical setup carry within them the ideas and values of those who created them, meaning invisible social norms of racism, classism, and sexism tend to seep into how they function. This shows up in the nature and scope of the decisions that are made. In practice, this may take the form of disproportionate cuts to women's social services, failure to prosecute rape crimes, or adequately resourcing maternal health care, or accommodate breastfeeding in public spaces. Government policymaking within departments of health, justice, and education, and the police ends up reproducing the same biases, prejudices, and patriarchal gender norms that shape society. We understand this as institutional misogyny. At the core of these unequal power dynamics are the patriarchal norms and gender stereotypes that determine our places in society. Controlling somebody's womb is the ultimate control over their body, reaching inside their very physicality. Where state policy instruments infringe a citizen's sexual and reproductive rights, they are often reflecting norms about women's place, being in the home under the care of men, and ideas that they are born to nurture children, fulfilling their motherhood role to society. Overturning Roe v. Wade has sent a message to other countries that progress on reproductive justice can be recontested. This is a threat to everybody, everywhere. Only through exposing and dismantling the structures of institutional misogyny can real gender and reproductive justice take root. It was often on the last night of camp when a group of smelly, sleep-deprived teens would shuffle off into the dark of night to a big field or a clearing in the woods. And within this open-aired sanctuary, the youth would split into two groups, and each would scatter about on either side of an imaginary dividing line. A ritual would then begin to complete the midnight youth-led service that was held each night during camp, but with the final night holding this ritual of special importance. The first group, scattered at least arm's length apart, would be invited to close their eyes, and all would begin to sing. How could anyone ever tell you you were anything less than beautiful? How could anyone ever tell you you were less than whole? And as they sang, as the 30 to 40 youth sang this beautiful song, the second half of the group were invited, if they felt comfortable, to approach the first group and to simply give each person, each friend, a hug. If anyone felt they did not want to be embraced or to embrace another, they could simply cross their arms over their chest, a signal that the song indeed was enough of an embrace. And so the song continued. How could anyone fail to notice that your loving is a miracle? How deeply you're connected to my soul. And that beautiful song would repeat and repeat over and over again, midnight, 12:30, sometimes 1 o'clock. How could anyone ever tell you you were anything less than beautiful? And as the embrace of unconditional love flowed through the peaceful fields of darkness, so too would the noise of soft weeping be heard. How could anyone ever tell you you were less than whole? And as the first group finished, they would return to their spots, and then the roles would switch. How could anyone fail to notice that your loving is a miracle? And on went the singing, the tears of feeling embraced and loved just for being themselves. And as you might imagine, along with the love and tears, often laughter and joy would follow, echoing sweetly through the night. How deeply you're connected to my soul. This service, this series, unfolding over the next month, is and will be a tender reflection on the power of love to uplift and to hold each of us in our inherent worthiness, in our individual unique beauty and authenticity. Love that acknowledges the spark of the divine that is oh so present within you, even when we forget it is there, or when society tries to take it away from us. As a lifelong Unitarian Universalist, I know at least one thing to be true, that love is a powerful force. And let me be more specific. It is powerful both in how it is shared and at times how it is withheld. In that sense, love's power is noticed even in its absence. The ritual I described above loved me into the minister I am today. The annual embrace of friends shaped my heart to not only be able to receive love, but to share it in return. There is mutuality and shared transformation in expressing our love for one another. Looking back now, almost 18 years ago, the last time I did this ritual, I recognize in the faces of friends that I was looking at pictures of them this week, and just in my own face as well, that one of the beautiful aspects of this ritual is that it was not only open to everyone, but it was open to every body as well. Today, I hope to share why we must celebrate the worthiness of every body. The space between these two words matter. Every and body. Bodies, the body, my body, your body, our bodies are the focus of this morning. Bodies are, for many of us, a very vulnerable topic. How many of you feel comfortable talking with your friends and family about your body or about body culture, broadly speaking? If you don't feel comfortable talking about your body, clearly you are not alone. Ironically, as much as we may avoid talking about the topic, we live in a world where body talk and body thought is pervasive, incessant, and unavoidable. Whether through social media, diet culture, Hollywood beauty trends and advertisements, or family pressure, we cannot escape the messages about the worth or lack thereof our bodies. Sandra shared a powerful testimony this morning as she reflected on her journey with messages about what was wrong with her and her body, especially in the first third of her life. At ages 6, 7, 8, 9, 12, 13, 14, 16, 17, 23, and 31, Sandra recalls moments, that constant body talk, which brought her to the conclusion that it, quote, seemed like everyone had an opinion about my body and my life, and there was no hesitation to express it, end quote. Indeed, from gender expression to sexuality to femininity to gender roles, and the list goes on, family, friend, and stranger all seem to feel they had permission to comment, critique, and direct how Sandra should live, or more specifically, how her body should look and move through the world. 2 points on this. While Sandra only recounted memories through the age of 31, I would expect that in a body-obsessed society like ours, those negative messages didn't cease in the 1980s. With the technological age on the horizon and social media proliferation just around the corner, I'd expect these messages only increased with time. Second, and this is a broader hypothesis, that although we tend to think we grow in a linear, progressive direction, when it comes to our bodies and our sense of self-worth, it is not always so. Time indeed may be less of an arrow and more of a hula hoop, or an old school telephone cord, or if you will, a Mobius strip for those math people here. And so as we age, we may at times feel like, oh, grown to drown out certain messages or avoid certain people. I'm off social media. I do not obsess about certain things. And then like a bolt of lightning, a negative comment or message or experience can bring us back to our 6-year-old self as if no time had passed. As such, the point I'm trying to make is that body criticism isn't something that just happens to children and youth, nor just to girls. Rather, it runs the spectrum of both age and gender. To make matters worse, one of the unexpected outcomes of the COVID-19 era, in my mind, of these past 4 years, is that we are so much more self-aware of our virtual image, of our two-dimensional self. We can't distinguish at times from both. So our social media and our Zoom identities became an actual existential expression of who we are. It was, and in some ways still is, for some of us, who we are. Social media has always been a distortion of life, but Zoom added this whole layer of bodily vulnerability as we entered one another's homes and were center stage in a sort of Brady Bunch square for months and years. It was an out-of-body experience to be on Zoom with all of you because we both saw one another on screen, a generally positive experience. I'd expect to know that we are not alone, but we also saw ourselves on screen as well. In the sense, we were watching ourselves and being very literally body conscious of our bodies due to the two-dimensional projection of our three-dimensional lives on screen. Research is still being done on the effects of this era on our mental health, but from my vantage point, it could have only exacerbated and perpetuated a culture of self and societal critique of bodies. Sandra made another important point in her reflection. She said, in a patriarchy, women, and I would add a friendly amendment to include trans and non-binary people, and their bodies belong to the men. Misogyny, transphobia, ableism, fat phobia, colorism, among others, do not exist in a vacuum of thought. These oppressive systems are literally embodied in the bodies and institutions of society in which we live. And if the oppression only ended at opinion, the world would be a much better place. But these are systemic things. And so what begins with a critique of your gender expression or your weight extends to cultural norm setting, school dress codes, and legislative decisions that affect, guess what, our bodies. Resmaa Menakem, who is an author and therapist who works with people around racialized trauma, has stopped calling it white supremacy or white supremacy culture, choosing instead to refer to it as white body supremacy and white body supremacy culture. Because, as he argues, white supremacy has effects primarily and ultimately on bodies. And like with white body supremacy, male body supremacy, thin body supremacy, and able-bodied supremacy, these all attack anyone who does not conform to a certain ideal. Violence, whether verbal, mental, or physical, comes to those who do not fit in the mold, the norm, or what is deemed whole, beautiful, worthy of love and respect. In our first reading by Hannah Sawyer, we see some of the harmful effects of vulnerable population, including young people generally. She writes, quote, what's often missing from discussions on body dysmorphia and beauty ideals is awareness of how ableism feeds these ideals and how these ideals feed ableism. If you have a visible disability that makes you appear markedly different from what westernized culture deems beautiful, the struggle to feel at home in your body may be even more difficult. She then goes on to say, for transgender people, the desire to appear more feminine or more masculine and pressures to avoid harassment and violence contribute to rates of eating disorders that are as much as 5 times higher than that of their cisgender peers. And then she finally ends with this. Along with body dysmorphia, Instagram also continually perpetuates fat phobia, the dislike or even hatred of fat bodies, by spotlighting women with cosmetically and digitally altered thin Instagram bodies. Whether you don't fit neatly into what society says your body should be able to do, ableism, or how you express your gender, transphobia, or how you look, fat phobia and misogyny, I want you to hear this very clearly from me. You are beautiful, you are whole, you are a miracle, and I see you. You are beautiful, you are whole, you are a miracle, and I see you. It is a mantra we need to say more often, and we need to hear more often as well. It is the mantra I learned as a smelly teenager on the last night of my summer UU camp. Standing in the dark field of night or sitting in this bright sanctuary this morning, we must affirm that we are beautiful, we are whole, we are a miracle, and we see one another. we just say this out loud? I know this is kind of awkward for some people. Do we dare say it out loud? Which direction would you say is harder to say, you or I? I is harder. So let's start with you. If you feel comfortable, and you'll just repeat after me. If you feel comfortable, turn to someone sitting near you and collectively repeat after me. You are beautiful. You are whole. You are a miracle. And I see you. Now, perhaps the harder mantra. If you feel comfortable to put your hand upon your heart, if you want to close your eyes, you can, and repeat after me. I am beautiful. I am whole. I am a miracle. And I am not alone. One more time. I am beautiful. I am whole. I am a miracle. And I am not alone. The power of this sermon series and this service today is found not only in the powerful feelings present in this moment in this room. Those powerful feelings and reminders of your worthiness are what this service and series are about, but additionally, we must not forget that the stakes are extremely high. For these mantras are not solely for the self, but for society, not just for me or you, but for us and all of us beyond these walls. The reminders are for those marginalized and vulnerable, for our children and our youth, and for all ages, for those who are transgendered and those who are cis, for those who do not fit in the norm of society, for those deemed less than, unworthy, and broken. We say these words of affirmation not for sentimental reasons, but in solidarity and resistance to the forces of violence that are at this very moment legislating against our humanity, legislating away our rights, legislating beyond opinion toward existential threat of who you are and what makes you beautiful, whole, miraculous, and seen. For as mentioned earlier, in the controlling of bodies did not begin with overturning Roe v. Wade. It comes in the permissiveness of diet culture seeping into the hearts of 6-year-olds, in the pervasiveness of social media infecting our sense of self, and in the aggressiveness of those with privilege transforming their opinions into violence, whether verbal, mental, or physical. Our second reading affirms this intersection of subtle and explicit harm. Quote, controlling somebody's womb is the ultimate control over their body, reaching inside their physicality. Where state policy instruments infringe a citizen's sexual and reproductive rights, they are often reflecting norms about women's places being in the home under the care of men and ideas that they are born to nurture children, fulfilling their motherhood role to society. Someone asked me in the last couple of weeks if this was a sermon on Roe, and the answer is yes. And one might ask if this is a sermon on body image, and the answer is yes. And when we understand the thread between how we are taught to hate our bodies or hate each other's bodies, and when the result is passing legislation or overturning case law as a way to reinforce that very degradation, we will come to see that only through the power of love will we ever get out of this hell we are in. It is love that will reframe, refocus our humanity and our sacred worthiness to live in such a way. We are here this morning. And must always, wherever we go, let this truth shine. We can be it for one another, for ourselves. Feel the shine. We can feel it. Can you feel it? May we shine so. May it be so. And amen.